Well, good morning again. The Daybreak Show rolls on here. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes on AM 1030 and FM 103.3. I have online via Zoom video conference from the Mason County Republicans. It's Philip Wilson. Hey, Philip, how you doing?
Hey, doing good. How you doing, Jeff?
I am doing well. Thanks for checking in. I was checking in with you guys, the League of Women Voters, the Mason County Democrats, just to kind of see how these groups are doing as we move into the primary with Election Day on the 4th here. It's going to be right around the corner. But just to see how the group is doing during the COVID crisis and what they're doing to help their candidates. So first, let's talk about the Mason County Republicans and kind of how many members you have, and then we can talk about this last Friday's event you had at Neyland Park.
All right, very good. Well, I guess it depends on what you what you mean by members, because the state kind of reorganized the way that whole process works, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago. And so we don't actually have like membership lists or so on and so forth. We do, of course, have what are called precinct committee officers, and probably a lot of people are not familiar with that. But the county is broken up into, at currently 43 precincts. There are about 1,000 people, or 1,000, I should say 1,000 voters each. And so we've had 30 to 35 precinct committee officers for the last 4 years, basically. And so, you know, these people are all volunteers, and so trying to get them engaged, and of course, then there's all sorts of other people that are part-time, or they are in a precinct with a PCO or that sort of thing, and so they just kind of help here and there where they can, and some of them are specialized in different areas. They are familiar with particular ways of doing things, and so they've got an expertise that they can help us out with. So you know, probably 100, 150 if you're thinking about that. And then of course you got all sorts of people that affiliate one way or another, or consider themselves you know, Republican. So
Sure. So with the PCOs, the precinct committee officers, these are big roles that you said a lot of folks don't really understand their role in it. Is there a precinct committee officer for both parties in the different districts, or is it a vote that happens in August here?
yeah, so every 2 years the party basically is reorganized, and this starts at the local level and then kind of moves up to the national level. And so during filing week, when candidates file for office, the regular offices that you would think about, that they can also file for what's called the precinct committee office, either as a Democrat or a Republican. And so the county, again, is broken up into 43 of those precincts. And so if you happen to reside in one of those precincts, then anybody can run as a precinct committee officer from that precinct for either Republican or Democrat. And so then they do that in May. There's a week that the state has set aside that you'd file as a candidate. Now, nobody will actually see your name on any ballot unless there's more than one candidate for that particular party. I think the Democrats have one or two PCOs where they actually have a contest going on. We do not on the Republican side. And so I do go out and I do try to recruit PCOs, usually the filing week. I always intend to do it before that, but it ends up usually being filing week, and I'm going out searching for people. And of course that does help us going out and helping to generate interest that way. But they basically are representatives then from the precinct to what's called the Central Committee. And so that is actually a legal organization then that makes decisions for the Republicans of Mason County. Now they get together in December, so they're chosen in May. If need be, they go on the ballot, and I believe it's August that they go on the ballot. So they should see those races showing up if you're in the precinct where there is a contest. And then in November, after the election, they're actually considered elected. In December, we get together, and all the PCOs that are elected then get together. They choose, 5 or 6 different positions: secretary, treasurer, chair, and so on for the state. 3 of those people, the chair, the state committee man, and the state committee woman, at least on the Republican side, then from every county, those 3 people, every county's doing the same thing. Those 3 people then become what's called the state committee. And then they meet in January, and they again, the party's being reorganized. So and I think it's similar on the Democrat side as well. But they reorganize, and then you have about 120 basically that are part of the state committee, and then those folks choose the party leaders for the state, and so then they'll have a state chair along with the other positions, a national committee man, a national committee woman, and then those 3 people again are going to become the national committee, what's called the RNC or the DNC, and then they choose their leadership. Anyway, that's kind of how it works. The precincts are different. Like in King, I came from King County, so King County has like 2,500 precincts, and that's not an exact number compared to our 43. Now their precincts are quite a bit smaller, like maybe 300 people, so you can get variations in size. But anyway, that's kind of the idea, is you're kind of forming from the bottom up.
The 35th district, which represents parts of Kitsap, parts of Thurston, but all of Mason County, its 2 House representatives, currently Republicans, Representative Dran Griffey and Drew McEwen. Talk to me a little bit about why you think that they have been reelected year after year, and the kind of the average Mason County Republican, their values, their kind of thoughts on that, and how, if it's different than the state party or if it's different kind of from the national, because Mason County is so unique.
Yeah, well, as you know, this used to be kind of a Democratic stronghold. I think Peggy Johnson was a representative, a Republican representative, and of course we've had county commissioners who've been Republican going back. I think Bill Hunter was the first Republican elected countywide commissioner in Mason County history. And so there's obviously a lot of Democratic history in here. But I think really what you've seen over the last 20 to 30 years is really more of a polarization of ideologies, with the Republicans, I would say, focused more around what I would consider the founders' philosophy, where the Democrats, I would say, are focused, are continuing to move towards what I would call progressive ideology. And so as those move apart, I think you're seeing strongholds develop in the cities, more in urban areas where people are closer together. I think you're finding people are trending more Democrat, and then the rural areas, because their needs and the way they see things is different. I think you're seeing trend the opposite way.
Do you guys have an office that people are able to frequent? When I was talking with the Democrats, they have their office. It's a rotating one every year. They seem to be in a different spot. They're on Railroad this year. What about you guys?
We do not have a specific office, and of course, the crisis, the COVID crisis hit us right when we were planning our basically our annual fundraiser, which is 99% of our funds come in during that time, and we were right in the process of planning that, and of course that had to be X'd off. And so yeah, we haven't pursued finding an office. We are looking at that, but we'd have to have some funder step up and say, yeah, that's important to me. And of course, not only that, but we would need to have volunteers that are interested in making sure, we just don't want to have an office and then not have anybody there to staff it. And of course, we're all volunteers. We're not getting paid for this, and everybody that is doing it has to have time to do that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. If we think there's going to be a cost benefit to us to be able to do that, and of course at some point there will be, but just at this point we haven't been able to put anything together.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and yeah, that probably was the right time for you to have that decision needing to be made, is when this is going on.
Well,
You can't. Go ahead.
Yeah. then we also have to decide, hey, do we want to use this to do, put an office up, or do we want to support our candidates? What's our, and different people are going to come to different conclusions. And obviously, even within the party, there's people that would like to have an office, and others who, that's going to be too much overhead. It's going to suck away from other things that we can do.
You do have a good online presence at masoncountyrepublicans.org, also on facebook.com/MasonCoGOP. And I'll put the links to that here in the show notes as well. Talk to me a little bit about how your event went last Friday at Neyland Park. You had a big lineup of candidates that were there.
Yeah, we've been doing that with the Mason County women, Republican women, for the last few years. And so this year, with all that's going on, we honestly, till the last moment, and with what the governor was coming out with restrictions and stuff like that, it was really kind of touch and go. We were almost going to pull the plug on the thing because of it's supposed to be groups of 9 or that sort of thing. And of course, crowd control is not our specialty. So and you get people that are excited, and
Sure.
Of course during the crisis, it becomes evident what impact policies are having, and so it really kind of came together there at the very end, the last week there, for us to be able to do that. And so we really had a good turnout of candidates. We had 4 governor candidates, and 2 for AG. I think just 1 from the lieutenant governor, and a smattering of other candidates. And we ended up having a huge turnout of people. In fact, I've had people tell me why I didn't. There was no parking, and I wasn't able to come. So we ended up having to turn people away because
Wow.
of missing parking. So I would say it was at least double what we normally get. People are really interested this year, and they're pretty excited.
Have you guys picked an endorsement for the governor's race or the attorney's general race? Or are you going to wait till after the primary, or?
Well, that did come up as a discussion earlier with our executive board, and at that time we decided to go ahead and stay out of it. And of course there's pluses and minuses. It can look like a lot of control by the leadership, and we certainly don't want to make it look like we're trying to control the choices of people. And there are a lot of gubernatorial candidates, and there certainly is a concern that we could be aced out because it is the top 2 primary, meaning that it doesn't matter. In fact, the Democrats lost on this end 4 years ago in the treasurer's race, when they had 4 or 5 candidates split the vote, and we had 2 Republicans that ended up on the final ballot. And so we kind of had a fluke there, where we ended up with a Republican treasurer, which we're grateful for. But again, that's kind of a definitely something that we're facing, and there's concern that we could have that happen to us in the gubernatorial race.
Are there any talks after the primary and as we move into the general of more time in Mason County or more time in the district with these folks? And maybe not the president, but someone associated with the president campaign perhaps coming into the county, depending on what they're seeing in the races?
Well, that's definitely potential. Mason County was, I think, the only county on Puget Sound that actually went for Trump last time.
Yeah.
And so I think they're, having seen 4 years of the president, I think the Republicans are, as far as governing goes, I think they're much more confident in the direction that's going to take. And so, yeah, that's definitely a potential. Mason County is a pretty small market for voters. I mean, one of the candidates is from Bothell, and I think they have 45,000 people here. We've got 65,000. So
Sure.
It's a pretty small market.
They look at those numbers.
Oh yeah,
close.
Yeah, although I do think, again, I think in the rural counties, the Republicans are really going to have to work for statewide races. We're really going to have to work on pushing our numbers up in the rural counties to counterbalance I lived in Seattle for 8 years, and then Bellevue for another 15 or 20 years and stuff. And to be able to counter what's going on in those places, which to me just seems crazy. If you see what's going on downtown Seattle and Portland, we really have to get our rural voters out in force.
Yeah, there's a lot of votes up and down that I-5 corridor, King County, Pierce County,
Yeah.
Thurston.
Yep.
Philip Wilson is with the Mason County Republicans. Again, the website, let me make sure I get this here, masoncountyrepublicans.org. I'm going to put that in the show notes, and on Facebook at Mason COGOP. Good to talk with you, Philip. Good to see you, and I'm glad that event at Neyland worked out well. And when you have more of those coming down the pipe, we'll make sure we let folks know here on the air. All right.
I would really appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff,
Yeah,
and I look forward to seeing you next time.
for sure. Thank you very much.